The Autistic Culture Podcast Network, the sound of autistic culture. ACPN.
I've known TJ Berden for 20 years. He was still in college when we met. And since then, I watched him become a Hollywood producer. And watching that happen from the inside is one of the genuinely great privileges of my professional life. A few years ago, I was with TJ at an industry party at a swanky hotel in Hollywood. And I watched while everybody in that room wanted to shake his hand. He was the guy everybody wanted to talk to. And I just sat there feeling like a proud big sister watching her person all grown up. Over the last 2 decades, I've watched him navigate one of the most difficult and competitive industries in the world and bring his own heart and integrity and humor into it. That's TJ. TJ started in marketing and PR, moved into documentary, then narrative film. He's produced movies that were distributed by major studios. He's made films about prison reform, education reform, faith, and he's currently finishing a documentary about a 106-year-old nun who became a New York Times bestselling author at 104. He is drawn to the people nobody else is paying attention to. He follows the story that matters instead of chasing a quick sale. What makes TJ a great producer is that he can step into almost any environment, talk to the people in that room, get to know them, and then turn around and step into an entirely different environment, talk to those people in an entirely different way, get to know them too, and then bring everybody together. He's a bridge builder, a translator, someone who can move between worlds without losing himself in any of them. He's trusted, he's respected, he works with integrity, and he has one of the quickest, sharpest wits I know. We've bonded deeply over our own gallows humor, or what I would call traumedy, the genre that lives at the intersection of trauma and humor, the ability to find the absurdity inside the pain, to laugh at the things that would otherwise be unbearable, to make art out of both at the same time. The movie he hired me to write, which is still in development for health reasons you now understand, was born out of exactly that. Our years of navigating life's tragedies and comedies together. It's a story about trauma recovery and unconventional therapy, and finding your community, told in a way that is both funny and willing to go to the depths of what it actually means to suffer. That's the kind of work we inspire in each other, deep and funny and full of heart. Hollywood is doing its own hard pivot right now. Even without my own personal health challenges, making a living in this industry has only gotten more difficult. Monetizing global entertainment is a sausage machine that keeps getting more efficient at making their own best-selling sausage. And the space for independent work with something to say is getting smaller. TJ is someone who can dive deep into his own process and find the right way to pivot, not by chasing the machine, but by following his values and figuring out how to make it work from there. Our friendship goes so far back we can both remember what it felt like to have optimism about Hollywood. And like most Hollywood relationships, what's equally interesting is all the stories we share that we're not telling. All the rooms we've been in together, all the names we're not dropping. 20 years of that. TJ and I have BFF energy. Alongside everything else, the industry history, the collaboration, the shared values, we just genuinely appreciate each other. We make each other laugh. We can go sideways into a completely unexpected idea and follow it all the way to the end. He even showed up at my house on Easter in a bunny costume, but that's a story for another day. As a high-masking autistic person, I naturally mirror the people I'm with. And with TJ, what comes out is wry, a little quick, collaborative. We riff, we tangent, we come back around. You'll hear that in this conversation. He knew the highly masked Hollywood version of me, and he's here for the unmasking version too. That's the mark of a real friend. This episode is about finding your people in Hollywood and what it means to have big dreams and a big heart in a town that wants to know if it's sellable. About what it means to stay true to yourself across 20 years of an industry that keeps changing the rules. It's about neurodivergent creatives, what TJ called, with a phrase I'm still thinking about, pearl divers. People who go to the bottom and come up with treasure. And it's about what it looks like when two people who love humanity and dark humor and complicated stories find each other in a room full of people playing a different game entirely. Here's TJ. Welcome to the Neurocomplex Creative. I'm Vicki Peterson, your host, and today we have a very special guest, my friend, my Hollywood friend and producer, TJ PJ. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Happy to be with you, Vicki.
So, TJ, can you tell me, let's catch the audience up a little bit with who you are and what you do.
Sure, yeah. Well, we met about 20 years or so ago and in Hollywood, and I've been doing all sorts of elements, started in marketing and PR and have moved into producing and directing now. So sort of full soup to nuts experience in Hollywood. Originally from Michigan, I've recently relocated back there. I went to school in Chicago, but we spent many formative years in Los Angeles.
Yeah. In fact, I think, you were the intern when I first met you, and I was a student in a program. And then shortly after that, I was hired to run that same program and hired you as one of the people working there. So our employment history goes way back together as well.
Isn't that how it goes? And that's what we learned out there, even in a smaller community, that, you're the intern then becomes the leader, and then the writer becomes the boss, and everybody's kind of leapfrogging each other through careers and life and all that.
Yeah. And that's, classic Hollywood strategy is to hire the intern and then the intern hires you. And it's worked for me so far.
Heck yeah. May it continue.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a lot in common, and, which is obviously why we've been friends for so long. Tell me a little bit about how it all started and what was the vision that got you to Hollywood?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. I don't think I had a vision when you asked that question. A lot of people have this dream when they go out. I'm doing a documentary right now about this 106-year-old woman who, that was her big thing. She was all about dreaming. She was always like, she says, if you don't love it, get out of it, which is she's about basketball. But if you have a dream, you need to follow the dream to the end. And, so for me, I was an actor. I was in theater. I was relatively successful and good at that in my own little collegiate, small, Chicago-based world. And that was interesting to me. But then I get to a point, and this is maybe part of the neurocomplexity piece that we'll talk about. It's like the next hurdle. You need the hurdle. You need the challenge to be able to get through to the next thing. So that got me into from theater, and I could have just stayed in that lane. And that could have been, but I was interested in documentary filmmaking, and then documentary filmmaking led me into narrative. And, I made a career out of just following sort of the next hardest thing to do, which is I could just document one thing after another in my career. I always said I felt like I was getting like every 3 years a new master's degree in distribution, marketing, screenwriting, directing, the whole. There's so much to learn, but there's something about it that's always been a challenge. Like unless there is a huge challenge ahead, it doesn't seem to be interesting.
Yeah. And one thing that I've noticed about you over the years is how you've carried your own values and your own ideals and your heart through every venture that you've really ever had.
No, it's true. It's true. It's for whatever reason, for better or for worse, this dang heart. Why does everything have to mean something? But yeah, I would say in various stages that got compartmentalized into different systems, right? Or like religion at a time was very, very important. And I know that was a value we both had for a long time, the organized side of religion. And then at a time it becomes something different. And like right now where it's at, it's like more into this middle space. I'm finding this like more liminal space between, well, this weird time we're living through, which is at least polemic politically. I mean, I'm a pretty progressive person, but the content I'm drawn to is some of this liminal stuff that pulls tension between both sides. And that seems interesting to me versus one side or the other, which I've seen so strongly in our time in Hollywood. It was like these poles. Like I went from the most conservative place in town to the most progressive. And, in the job, you follow the people. There's some good people in both places. There's some challenging people in both places. So it's just interesting to see where that golden thread leads. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as a friend who also has had a lot of interesting conversations in a lot of different types of rooms in Hollywood, you're also someone who has experienced that as well. And I just have to commend you for really showing up as yourself in all of those spaces and being able to ask a lot of really interesting, important questions. And so much of that points to your curiosity as a filmmaker.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. Like, there is a curiosity about the humanity of the people that you're with. You want to know the truth of things. You want to understand how things work. I'm doing an inspirational basketball documentary right now about this 106-year-old nun. I just got curious about it. I was just, why did this woman at 104 become a New York Times bestselling author? And her humanity was interesting, and there were a couple factors there that made as one example right now. But I've done prison reform documentaries. I've done something about one of the most famous people in the Bible, education reform. But it's this curiosity that I know you also as a writer take with you wherever you need to put pen to paper and investigate, right? We're theater nerds too. At some level, we like worlds. We like niche worlds.
And I think that's also something that you and I have in common is that theater background. And I think going into Hollywood with a theater background, in a way, it was grounding and also liberating because I think we're both exploring the human condition through that lens. And that guides somebody more than, how to make a buck in Hollywood.
And didn't you feel like when you arrived, you can never read enough. Like Hollywood is a reading town.
Right.
But like no one reads, but everybody needs to. You're reading every weekend, new scripts that are coming through, this type of thing. And if you're not, you're behind. But didn't you feel when you came to that in a new way from theater that we had read the whole canon? Not like we didn't need to read other things, but reading the great canon, like especially, the American theater canon it's some of the best stuff that I think we've produced from a literature point of view in the country. Didn't you feel like really well accustomed or equipped, I should say, to dive in?
Oh, yeah. And the classics in general are really important, I think, for having a storytelling foundation. And if you're going to go into the entertainment industry, even as a business person, storytelling is really central to that, in understanding why certain things can't go on the chopping block from a financial perspective, and to understand story from that way. That's my soapbox about developing stories in Hollywood,
Absolutely.
And I consider you one of my people, and you've always been a safe person to me and an interesting person who's interested in a lot of different people and ideas. And because of that, non-discriminating. I'm Vicki, and I host the Neurocomplex Creative. And if you've been listening to us, I want you to spend some time with Theatrically Authentic. It's a podcast about musical theater, but through a neurodivergent lens, which means it's also about hyperfixation and masking and the very specific kind of person who doesn't just watch a show, they live inside it. There's an episode called The Neurodivergent Pull of Theater that honestly made me feel seen in a way I wasn't expecting. That's what I love about being part of ACPN. You can move from a show about creativity and inner life to one about performance and identity, from something quietly reflective to something that is absolutely running on theater kid energy. And both of them are telling the truth about neurodivergent experience in a way mainstream media just doesn't. After this episode, go find Theatrically Authentic, part of the Autistic Culture Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm curious what it was like for you to find your people in LA.
It's a great question. Finding your people in LA, I would say, yeah, first of all, you stumble into a community, right? Like, we had a community. It was a Christian training program for writers and producers in Hollywood. That was our inroad. We didn't come from a family. We're not Nepo babies. We didn't go into universities. We didn't have a USC background. We came from other places other than Los Angeles, and there happened to be this place that also great writers, great storytellers, some of the best in Hollywood. It was really like high level, but there was this element there that was, the religion was really important, that there was bringing the light and love into the world. And so I think, you start wherever you are. If you're an intern in town, you start with the set that you can get into. So you and I think we're lucky that, and I'm sure there's a lot of great people, but I don't stay in contact with, I don't think many, but there are a few great ones that have really emerged during that time. The first set I was ever on was a set through that organization, but I met you. We bonded around a shared sense of also humor. Like, I just feel like we were the outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you quickly find like the outsider that's like laughing at the absurdity of life. Like, I feel like you and I both were commenting on like as if we were in like a spoof. Our life was kind of a spoof or something. We just had a ride.
Absolutely. I think we were really good at like side eye in certain rooms. I mean, to the point that it was sitcom level side eye happening in these meetings.
Yeah, it's like the Fresno, and I think that's also something to do with the things we've discovered about how our brains work, right? How the creative mind works in a complex way that, yeah, so I think that was something. But then you just bloom where you're planted. The first couple of jobs you get, you work with those people, and that's great. And, sometimes that works out in time, sometimes it doesn't. But then you begin to know who you are. You begin to see what you really need and want. And I think Hollywood has a way of refining you because you go through so many fires. There's so many problems and difficulties. It's really a fire. And so you either burn up or you realize who you are and what you can and cannot stomach and what you will deal with and you won't deal with. So I think that's a continual process. It's a self-understanding of like, these projects are so hard to do and get them accomplished in the world. Who do I want to spend that hardship with? Who has my back? I mean, this is a professional, personal, creative collabs. Yeah, who do I want to like? This is going to be impossible to do. It's going to be impossible. Every project, impossible. And so who do I want to do the impossible with? And I think it just has taken time to realize that. And sometimes it just is a gift. You're on a ride with somebody. You're like, all right, we're going to do this adventure together. But I think as I get older, I just would like to spend the time I do have with the people who share a certain sense of humor, and maybe not always humor, like who's like willing to roll with it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something I've always seen in you, is to be able to sit with the complexity and articulate big ideas as they are in process and forming. And not everybody can go there and do that. And I'm a complex person, and as a neurocomplex creative, I've always known that this was a quality that I've had, but it really wasn't until a couple of years ago when I was diagnosed as autistic that I really got to understand from a different place where all of these traits come from, and these inclinations that I have to process big ideas. And you've always been someone who I feel like you always got me on a creative level. And I feel like I was able to get you on a creative level and have those conversations. What has that experience been like for you?
Yeah, no, I would say even we knew each other for a time, and I would say 15, 16 years into that time, a lot of self-realizations came out for me, came up for you. And that was interesting to kind of meet each other in a different, not that we didn't stay close during all those years, but you were writing books and teaching and lecturing, and I was kind of in a marketing and PR capacity. And then we pop out and you have to do multiple things while you're pursuing your core craft. And it was remarkable to me. I think I lost my sister. I think that was a big moment that like obviously cracked me open. And that was a time when you were diagnosed with autism. And I thought it was just really like impressive. Neither of us were spring chickens, and that you were able to take that on with such courage and like self-acceptance. And I think as a woman too, that's not really easy in this world, the diagnoses and like understanding complexity. And I happen to have a lot of neurocomplex female friends. Like, I don't know, maybe also male friends too, but like definitely I'm drawn to it. What the thing that I see in you is also that curiosity. It's what you know so well, and that you've dove to the bottom of it. And you can take a person on a tour of an amazing series of realities, if that is, whatever the story is or whatever.
Or a series of unfortunate events.
Sometimes we're not aware of why this is happening. But, exactly. So to me, it's like a neurodivergent creative is like a precious thing in the world, because they are people who have plumbed the depths of something. They have explored it inside and out. And it's somebody who's like, yeah, like I have my own and I have versions of it, but someone who can go to the bottom of it so hardcore, it's just such a beautiful thing for me, because it's like my brain won't be able to exhaust itself in the way that I notice that you do, for example, or my other friends. And so I feel like it's like a treasure. Like you've come up from, I have a creative partner who also has an interesting way of thinking about things. He's referred to as the pearl diver. He's just able to go to the bottom, and when he comes up, he is a treasure. And same with you in the creative worlds. And that's, I think, how we met each other again around the creative, around some projects and ideas. There was all these ideas of complexity and later in life diagnoses, mental health. And it just was like a fascinating way of looking at a person.
Yeah. And you hired me to write a feature film, which is still in progress because I am neurocomplex and also because I was dealing with a lot of health challenges in the last couple of years. And you, on a personal level, you have been so gracious and understanding of my limitations in the last couple of years, while at the same time holding a complex creative person who's, doing this deep dive down in the depths, in the mud with a project. And even though we haven't arrived at a finished product yet, it's still in development. just being able to hold that creative space with somebody, I think, is really the mark of a brilliant producer. You can get dirty with me in those depths.
Yeah, thank you. That's really sweet of you. But like, I think every story has its own world and rules. But if you're doing a story that happens, and the one that we're talking about has to do with a real complex mental health concept and world and ideas that are really important. Also, like, I know the time something takes is the time it takes, but like, you have the modality that we use in the process of creating the content has to be, trauma informed. It has to be, in which Hollywood is not a trauma informed place, but if you're going to get the best of creative out of it, then you have to let the story actually inform your process too. And so that's what I've learned working with you in that regard, is that with limitations, would I expect otherwise out of a story that has those themes very much baked into it? And, we both have had our life has, paused things, but Hollywood isn't always one giant or some stage of a pause, a crisis and a pause.
Absolutely. And both of us have developed an interest in understanding trauma after working in Hollywood for so long. So we have a lot of material to explore.
Things to say.
What would you say to somebody who has a big dream and a big heart like you, who's trying to figure out where they fit as a creative person?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question. You have to just get your hands dirty and create. And I just think the tools right now are in so many people's hands. The idea that you need to go and do something abstract outside of yourself. If you have to go to the big city, you got to go to the big city. And often we all do, to meet your tribe and meet different people. But what I'm so interested in right now is like what people are doing, like in a very like lo-fi way. And yeah, just creating. It's hard to make anything. I think the idea of not working on your craft or ideas that you have, there's no excuses, was what I would say. For us, it was harder. 20 years ago, I was making little films as well. But you needed to go and understand how certain trades were taught. And now the tools are in our hands. So yeah, with the big heart thing, I would say it's a noble endeavor to put one's heart on the line with your content. It's, dare I say, dangerous, because I'm even in a place right now on a project that is, I would say, very meaning driven. It means a lot. This human who has now passed means a lot to a lot of people. She did mean something to me for the brief time that I did know her. The meaning part is, it's tricky because then it has meanings for different people. So yeah, one thing I guess I'm learning is start from yourself first and then draw outwards. This is a dangerous thing to say, but that's where I am in my process. Anything outside of yourself too much and too early in your process, I think starts to lead you into being able to dole your services out for anything. And I just think every person, every human has such a unique inner life, and plumbing that story, like your own story, who you are as a creative. Like, we've talked about your background, and I hope you get into it and break it out open to people, because that's what I would say to you is like, what I see now is like this creative person with this really interesting backstory. And I think right now we're in a place where if you can harness your backstory in a way that feels good for you and safe and all of it, that's just like, that's what quote unquote Hollywood's looking for. They're looking for people who have lived a life, have something new to say, and aren't just regurgitating. So yeah, tapping into to your heart first. So a big heart can be used by others is what I would say. So own your heart, own your story.
I love that emphasis on self-love and self-care. And I'm hearing so much care and concern for the people that you work with as a producer and as a creator, and also for the project itself. And I think that you're someone who has made many different types of things. Many sausages have been made. And I think that is that common thread, is that throughout all of it, you have had such deep love and concern for not just the product, but the people behind the product.
Yeah, and it's a double-edged sword because you see a lot of people who it's more easy for them. And I wonder, is that nature, is that nurture part of ourselves that allow, because some people we've met in our professional, personal lives can just get by offending and hurting others and plowing forward in their life. And sometimes those people actually are pretty successful.
Some of those people are really rich.
Yeah, exactly. Some of those people are running the country, but I think it's important to find people around you who do the same for you, that you see the same sort of reciprocity. If that's how you are, find your community, find your tribe who they want to see you succeed. And that you aren't just putting your talent, time, treasure out on the line for others to exploit. I mean, Hollywood is an exploitative place because they need, and I think it's getting better, right? Less free labor, less intern work. The unions are in, it's good. But, I see a lot of like young comedy groups coming together and supporting one another. I'm seeing a lot more like, hey, if I make it up one level, you're coming up with me. I think finding those kind of other people who care as much, and it's in a more reciprocal way.
And I feel like, even though I didn't know it at the time, I think that might be an autistic trait, is to really look at the heart.
Me right now?
No, I'm talking about myself.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But
no, go for it. I'm curious.
One of the things that I think helped me a little bit in Hollywood, in retrospect, is this idea that I wasn't impressed by celebrity or power or money. I was interested in people and who they are and how they think. And there are a lot of really interesting people in LA or in any creative place. And creative people are my people. And I think even though that didn't necessarily translate to career success, at least in a monetary way, but I think it did translate to the kind of success that matters to me, which is to find my people. And I'm just so glad that you're one of my people.
Say more about that, though. I'm curious about what's the link between that and autistic traits?
Well, I think the idea that, and this is a generalization, of course, and there's probably a researcher who has said it much better than I am saying it right now, but the idea that autistic people or neurodivergent people aren't always interested in external factors. They're looking at the person underneath those things. So being rich and famous is not necessarily interesting to a neurodivergent person. Being kind, being generous, having depth, humor, being able to talk to different types of people and treat them all equally. That's something that I look for and have always looked for in my relationships with others, that in my own reading about being autistic, that this can point to a neurodivergent trait.
That's so interesting. And it's resonant. I mean, you see that on the spectrum of people. But yeah, I'd say, and Hollywood is a place where kissing the ring and showing a little bit of awe and wonder for the person who is now attracting the most eyeballs, making the most money, it goes a long way. I mean, show business. That's why people are there. So I think you're stumbling onto something interesting, because there is, I think, some of us who see through that, and we want to get down to the core of it, core of the person. And that sometimes, and I've seen in my career, in my life, there are some ways of being that don't feel totally in keeping with the way this industry works. It's a very strange industry where wonderful and strange business of people trying to understand how the machine works so that they can make a living and make a life. So there's a lot of peopling that happens, and it's really complex. So I think what you're saying about it is like, I'm almost thinking like, does anybody talk about that? Because it's some of the best artists in the world, I would imagine, find themselves on the autistic spectrum. They probably protect themselves as a writer. It's probably a lot safer. I don't know if that feels right to you. Like
Oh,
the
yeah.
characters on the page feel a lot easier to. I mean, that seems like a stereotype, but it also kind of makes sense. Of like deliver the script and then have the producer deal with it. It's like,
Yeah. Well, and just exploring storytelling in general, I think really speaks to my own neurodivergence in wanting to study human behavior and how people are. That's always been an interest since the very beginning.
That's so. Yeah, no, me too. I mean, that's how I would say theater was a way of learning on stage and characters and settings how the world can work, especially if you come from a kind of a chaotic upbringing. The safety of a scene and a world, you actually learn the rules of the world in theater. That's how I did. And then I got curious about the world. I got interested in documentary filmmaking. I wanted to know about how and document and follow how these complex systems work and people. And yeah, I find that to be so interesting with like the human behavior. And then Hollywood is so much itself, its own. You're living its own documentary at any given time about it. But I find that to be a really interesting observation about artists and the challenge, right, of being an artist in Hollywood in a system, in a machine. And it's becoming even increasingly so. There's no middle class. All the money is being pushed up to the vertical integrations, remakes. I mean, there are some people who will have great success in those, and those are great movies, and I'm happy some of them are getting made. There's space for that. But there is less and less space for these sort of independent projects that would be the ones that you and I gravitate most to, which are the ones that have something to say and are curious about human nature.
Human stories. TJ, I could talk with you for hours, and when we end this interview, we probably will. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right. This is the Neurocomplex Creative. Thank you. If this episode resonated with you, come find me on my brand new Substack at A Hat on a Hat on a Hat, where all my hats live. It's where I write about the creative life, the neurocomplex life, living with chronic conditions, and everything in between. You can find it at ahatOnaHatOnAHat.substack.com. And if you want to support the show, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Vicki Peterson. That's buymeacoffee.com/VICKIPETERSON. Every cup helps keep me going at whatever pace is sustainable. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for listening. Support autistic-led media through Autistic Culture Plus and enjoy bonus content, early episodes, and ad-free listening. Visit autisticculture.supercast.com to learn more.